Welcome to episode 2 of Ezy-Speech TV, and today we're going to introduce you to Jasper. Jasper has a lot to teach us about talking because Jasper can chat, but let me tell you, Jasper has learnt to talk through repetition, practice, and we're going to be talking about that in various episodes of Ezy-Speech TV.
And Jasper hasn't got a fluency problem either. He's very, very fluent, but he probably won't say anything while the camera's on.
He's a little camera shy, but hopefully as we go along he may relax.
So you'll probably see Jasper in future episodes, I would think.
So Jasper's just gone walkabout over there, and meanwhile it's time for our chat. Now Dave, just the other day I was buying a new computer. The salesman came to serve me and was with me for a very long time while I was selecting my computer, and he stuttered a lot. In fact, it was taking such a long time to get the information that I needed to purchase this computer, and well down into the conversation he did finally ask me what I did and what the computer was for, and I told him. But still, you know, he was fine. He obviously worked in a sales job, was happy walking up and talking to people he didn't know, and was quite comfortable stuttering a lot. Do you find you meet people like that?
I have, and a couple of my friends are actually like that. And it's refreshing to see people out there in the workplace that are stuttering away quite happily, or seemingly quite happily, and functioning at the highest level. A stutter is not something that you need to be concerned about. It's how we perceive the situation we're in life, not necessarily only in stuttering, but various aspects of life. But in terms of stuttering, it's okay to stutter. It's just that we perceive stuttering as being something out of the normal. And we all like to be involved in groups in life and what we call normal groups. So we perceive stuttering as being outside that normal framework.
Well, that's right, because human beings are tribal in nature, and since day dot, human beings have always wanted to belong to a tribe. And since day dot, human beings have had this natural tendency to exclude people who don't fit in to their particular norm as to what makes up their tribe. So I suppose perhaps for some people there is a greater need to fit in than there is for other people, would you say?
Yeah, most people need to fit into their group, their peer group. And if you don't, it can cause things like avoidance to occur in the person's life, to avoid communication, to avoid interacting with people, which will lead to communication. So we obviously have treatment for people out there that do have a stutter.
The other thing I do observe is that a number of parents, many parents actually over the years, who bring their child in to have their stutter addressed will stutter quite excessively themselves, but say that it doesn't bother them, they're fine, they're doing well, their life is great, but become actually visibly emotional to the point of, you know, tears when they watch their child stutter. So do you think some people say things are A-okay, but perhaps deep down they're not?
Sure. I think parents want their children also to fit in within these groups. It's a lot of pressure on young children, especially in those formative years, from in the early teenage years up until 2021. I find people become more concerned about their stutter when they become married, or when they marry, because not only are they looking after themselves, but they're also looking after their wife and perhaps children. So at times when this occurs, they have to speak for these other people. So this is where their motivation levels to harness their fluency are at the greatest level. in my experience.
So Dave, then from day to day, how do you rate your stutter? What do you consider to be the parameters of, having a day where you speak well according to your parameters and having a day where it doesn't work out so well for you?
Yeah.
And then how do you rate that?
Okay. Well, I've always considered myself as being an average sort of stutterer, but I am concerned about stuttering in public and always have been. There's a rating system out there. I'm not sure whether you guys have heard of this, but you can rate yourself in severity from 1 to 5, 1 being fairly mild and 5 being severe. Also, you can rate yourself from 1 to 5 cognitively.
Okay.
1 being you aren't concerned about the stutter at all, and 5 being you're very concerned about it. Now, I would rate myself as being about a 2 in severity, but a 5 cognitively. So my severity when I was stuttering, as I used to when I was younger, is not too bad. At times I was worse than others. But I was always very concerned between the ears about fitting in and how I sounded. Some people have a severity of 5, but cognitively they rate themselves as a 1.
Right.
They're very lucky.
So perhaps the fellow who served me at the computer store was one of those, because he certainly didn't display any visible anxiety, and he was certainly fine with me standing there waiting for him to explain things. He wasn't trying to rush. He wasn't avoiding my eye contact.
Lisa, it's very refreshing to see people out there in the workforce that have a stutter and yet they're functioning at the highest level. Stuttering is okay. It's okay to have a stutter. It's one thing that people have to deal with, certain people. About 1 to 2% of the world's population have a stutter, and it's okay. It's how people perceive their stutters that's the problem. It's what's going on between the ears in terms of, I don't like myself because I stutter. I've always had a problem with my speech. These thoughts and many, many other negative thoughts tend to run through the minds of stutterers. And that can come about from various reasons, including early comments from children in the playground, or maybe one comment from someone in a shop. And these early negative comments, and it might be a complete misconception.
That's right. I mean, you could be making an assumption about what the other person is seeing, feeling, thinking, doing, and it could be completely unrelated to you. Do you find that people have experiences like that where they relay what happened to them, but it could have been construed a number of ways?
Yeah. I was talking to a professor in speech pathology in Sydney some years ago, and he was relating a story about a young boy at the time who was ordering a milkshake at his local cafe, and the person behind the counter must have had a bad day or something, but he made some comment, and the boy thought that it was about his disfluency. He perceived that it was about his disfluency. And this boy was now 55 years of age, talking to this speech pathologist about this incident. So he carried this negativity all the way through his life and still related to that young boy as he perceived this situation was about his speech. But it may very well have been that the owner of the shop may just have had a bad day.
Absolutely. Well, do you recall there was a time when you and I called in, we were going to a conference and we called in at a Subway to get something to eat, and you went off to get the coffees and I went and ordered the Subway, and the fellow serving me was so rude. He was really rude. And then he kept forgetting the order, and he must have asked me about 5 times for the order. And then you'd come back, and I finally said to him, because it was quite excessive, I finally said to him, I sort of gave him a smile, and I just said, "Oh, it's just not your day, is it?" In a really nice tone. And this very, very large, buffed, good-looking guy just broke down in tears. And he said, "I've just had a phone call. I've had some really bad news, and I'm just waiting for someone to relieve me. I have to go. I've got really bad news." Now, and I turned to you and I said, if he'd been serving you and you had been stuttering and he had been that rude and asked you to repeat 5 times what you wanted, there's a chance you could have thought it was all about your stutter.
A big chance, especially if your stutter is constantly on your mind. You're very sensitive to anything that the person says to you, and you may relate any negativity to your speech. But it's perception that drives a lot of these negative problems we have in living with our stutters. So that's one of the major aspects we need to improve before anyone even thinks about having any therapy for their stutters.
Because I was going to say to you, out of the entire Ezy-Speech technique that you use every day, which aspect do you think is fundamental, crucial, must be addressed even before you start incorporating all the other aspects of the technique? And so you think it's mindset?
Definitely. I think that the technique is very, very important to master and have that in your kit bag to help you get through life. Technique is very important. But initially, the mindset and the willingness to change the way you feel about yourself and the way you feel about others and how they perceive you, or you perceive they feel about you, that needs to change.
So I believe we need to kick off episode 3 next week talking about mindset. Let's go into a bit of a detail about what everybody can do about what's between their ears.
Definitely. And I'd like to ask you guys how you feel about your stutters.
Have a think about that before next week, and we'll see you soon with Jasper.
Right, Jasper will be here.